My name is Emily Bryant, and I am the education manager at the USS Constitution Museum in Boston, Massachusetts. And I come from a background, I'm basically a museum teacher. I'm in education, but I work at a museum. So I teach people about history. I have a background, I was a high school teacher before this, and I have worked for the National Park Service as well as a park ranger.
So do you want to just jump right into the presentation?
Sounds good. Yeah. Happy to welcome everybody. I'm going to pull up my screen here and welcome you all today to your virtual field trip to the USS Constitution. As I said, we are coming at you from the USS Constitution Museum, which is here in Boston, Massachusetts. And our museum, where I work, tells the story of the historic warship USS Constitution. So we have all the stuff, the objects, the exhibits that teach people about this special historic ship. And the ship itself is also right across the street from us here in Boston. And so this is USS Constitution. This is a very special ship to the United States. It's a national symbol for us. This ship is 225 years old, and it got its fame for fighting in the War of 1812. Which was a conflict our country had against Great Britain. And USS Constitution, as you can see from this historic painting, just destroyed the British fleet in every battle that it fought during that war. So this ship was designed, or excuse me, not designed, but commissioned by George Washington, our first president. We were a newly independent country. And he said, hey, we're a new country. We need a navy to protect our country at sea. I want 6 ships built for our new navy. And USS Constitution was one of those original 6 ships that were built. And it's still with us today, 225 years later, the only one left of those original 6. And it's a good thing he had the Constitution designed, because come, a couple decades later, war was declared again, as we talked about, on Great Britain. They were still harassing our ships at sea. They were kidnapping U.S. sailors. And so we went back to war with them, and Constitution was called up and put to the test in 3 battles against the British. And as I said, it won every battle, and the ship came back from this war a celebrity. People could not believe that this underdog U.S. ship had beaten the world's biggest navy at the time. So it became a celebrity, it became a famous ship, and that is why it is still with us today now here in Boston. And because what's really cool about Constitution, it's actually still in our United States Navy. So it's an active duty military ship, and its crew is about 80 active duty U.S. Navy sailors. So they're here for about 2 to 3 years at a time, and then they go off somewhere else to serve in their Navy career. And they help us tell the story of the ship as well. Well, they're the ones mainly telling the story of the ship. As I said, we have a lot of the cool stuff. So I want to introduce to you one of these active duty sailors, Jordan, who's with us today and is going to be taking us on our tour. Jordan, introduce yourself.
My name is Seaman Jordan Sharp. I am originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. I enlisted in the Navy in 2020, so I've been in for a little bit over 2 years. I've been at Constitution for a little shy of 2 years. I'll hit 2 years in December, and my rate in the Navy, or my job, is actually MA, which is Master at Arms, or military police in other branches. And yes, this is my first duty station. It's a really cool duty station. You get a lot of history, and you are able to give tours and educate people like you guys and a lot of tourists and civilians on basically what Constitution is and why we need a Constitution, why she's still important today.
Great. Yeah, today you are all seeing the ship. It's closed to the public, so you're not going to see any tourists around on the ship, which is nice. We have it to ourselves today on our tour. But we'll start. Jordan, if you could just like turn your camera around and walk us up on the ship.
So this is actually the back of the ship, or the aft part of the ship. This is not the front, I guess I would say. So this is starboard side. We usually entered over on port side, but they're doing some construction right now. Right here from the outside in, we'll take a look when we actually get on the ship, but that's the captain's cabin that you see while we're walking up. And we're just going along here.
So hopefully you guys are noticing some things sticking out the side of the ship. Those are the guns, or what we might refer to as cannons. Constitution is a warship, so we'll talk about that a little later in our program. And Jordan is now leading us up the brow of Constitution. There we go.
Okay. So this is the spar deck. Do you have anywhere specifically you want me to start or go?
No, actually, Jordan, we'll come back to this in a second, because first I want to ask our students here some questions. I want to see if they have what it takes to be a sailor in 1812. Okay, so I'll be right back with you. So before we get our tour, we're gonna kind of structure our tour about what a day might be like for a sailor on Constitution in 1812. But first we have some recruitment questions for you all. So I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. If your answer is yes, you can put a yes or no, or actually no, we can do thumbs up, thumbs down, because I see all of your screens here. So give a thumbs up if your answer is yes, thumbs down if your answer is no, and let's see who we're working with here today. Let me pull up my questions. All right, so our first one here is, do you have all of your teeth? Thumbs up, yes, thumbs down, no. Okay, see a good amount here. All right. All right. Looking pretty good here with this crew. This is maybe a silly question, but this was actually a question you were asked in 1812 if you wanted to join the Navy. Think about for a second why that might be. The teeth was a quick way to see if you were healthy. Okay, if you have all of your teeth, you probably don't have a disease, you don't have scurvy, you have the strength to do the job needed because you have all your teeth. So it's a quick way to tell your health. So we're looking good here, Jordan, with this crew. All right, I'm going to ask them another question here. Do you have all of your teeth? And now, are you afraid of heights? Thumbs up, yes, terrified. Thumbs down, no, no issue for me. Okay, some brave crew members out there as well. Okay. Good to know. That is important on Constitution, and that also, Jordan, is still a question you're asked, correct?
It's one of the deciding factors in your interview process to come here.
And I see behind you, can see why I'm asking these students this question. Why can you not be afraid of heights on Constitution?
So we have the rigging up here. It is called standing rigging. It's the rigging that you see on the side going up. And we have to climb all the way up there through that hole right there on the fighting top. And then on that mast right there, the one right in the middle, is where we go to climb to furl and unfurl sail.
All right. So yes, cannot be afraid of heights. We'll talk about that in just a little bit in a little more detail, but good to see we have some brave crew members here today. The last question I'll ask you has to do with 1812, but still, are you willing to work for $8 a month, which is maybe about $130 in today's money? So let's say $130 a month in today's money. some not great. Okay, that was your pay on Constitution as a new young inexperienced sailor. That was your pay. In comparison, the captain of the ship, who was the highest level running the ship, he was making $100 a month. So 100 to 8, that was your pay on Constitution. But I think we can take you all into our crew today because I'm seeing some good responses. I think we have a hearty group here tuning in. So we'll welcome you on to Constitution's War of 1812 crew today. If you were joining back in 1812, you would be along with 500 other sailors living and working on the ship. So once again, keep that in mind. We have an empty ship today. You would have hundreds of people around you if you were on the ship 200 years ago. And so you can see a breakdown, some officers, but the bulk of our crew were what we called enlisted, which means they didn't have they didn't have schooling. They were young as 8 years old. You could join the Navy in War of 1812. So I'll also point out on this chart, you don't see any women. Women and girls were not allowed to serve in the Navy in 1812. Luckily, that has changed. A lot of Jordan's colleagues now on the ship are women, and Constitution just got its first female captain in 225 years this January. So you see her there on the screen, Commander Farrell. So Constitution is still making history, which is cool. So Jordan, let's come back to you. I think we're going to walk through some of the tasks you might have to do on Constitution if you were on our crew in 1812. And one would be those sails, right? So you showed us these sails, but we're not actually seeing the sails, right? Constitution's kind of naked today.
Correct.
Yeah. And so I'm going to just pull up a picture here of what the Constitution would look like with all of its sails. Oh, not this. Here we go. Constitution would have had 46 sails back in the day, right? So it's a sailing ship. You have to move those sails up and down by hand. There's no button you press or no machine to get those to move up and down for your ship to go. So you notice you have to climb 200 feet up those masts, and with all of your crew members, pan out and stand very close to each other. All you have to balance on is a small tight rope or foot rope. And you have to lean over that sail and try to pick it up and put it back down while the ship is moving back and forth. And we had a sailor attach a video to his head. You can kind of see firsthand what this is.
Sound us off, unit.
They're working together, they're saying commands 2, 6, leave, and they pull up that heavy sailcloth. And this just gives you a sense of what that might feel like. So I'm going to stop that video for a sec. That's why we asked you, are you afraid of heights? Because you have to do that. So Jordan, I'm curious, you still practice this even nowadays. What's it like to climb that high up on Constitution?
So practicing doing the sails, for us, it takes very long and it is a lot of work, especially depending on the mast that you're on. So if you can see this mainmast, the sail is a little over 2,000 pounds, just the sail. So it takes a lot of our crew and the strongest of our crew to be able to furl that sail successfully. So you'll see the mizzen mast and the foremast is way easier because it's smaller. But for me and for other short people, probably, it is very scary, but it is actually the easiest. If you notice on the sail or on the yard right there, that's called a yard arm right there, The shorter people would actually be out on the Q-tips. So myself, I'm a whopping 5'2". I would be out here, and it's the least work because most of the sail, as you can see in the video, is actually in the middle of the yard. So I'm kind of just sitting there for a while everyone else finishes. But my shipmates that are in the middle are working very, very hard to pull up the rest of the sail. If you're wondering how we get up there, we actually climb this rigging right here, and we climb up, go through the hole, and then we go out on the yard.
All right.
And that's how climbing works.
Great. And Jordan wears a safety harness nowadays. Back in 1812, there was no safety harnesses. So you were just up there, and we do have accounts of deaths of people falling from aloft because it was quite a way up there. All right. So if you're still with us, that's why we ask you, you're afraid of heights. If you're still game, maybe heights is not your thing. There's other jobs you had to do on Constitution that were more grounded. And one of those jobs would have been to be on one of the many gun crews of Constitution. So Jordan, we're gonna follow you down to the gun deck. If you could take us down there, one of the ladders. Okay. Constitution has 4 levels. So we're on the top deck, which is outside, and then there's 3 levels inside. And the second level we're taking you to is called the gun deck, and you'll see why. All right. So Jordan, as you're showing us, as you're walking through, tell us what we're seeing. Where are we?
Okay, so this is Constitution's gun deck. I like to call it our most multi-purpose deck, simply because while it is the gun deck, it is also the galley. So let's address what gun deck is first. So these are our 24-pound long guns. They take about 9 to 15 men to actually man them. That would be a gun team. And if you are the gun team for starboard side gun, you are also the gun team for port side gun. So 9 to 15 people may seem like a lot, but these are big guns. They weigh about 6,500 pounds by themselves, and their long range is about 2,000 yards or 1,200 yards, between 1,200 and 2,000 yards, their shot range is.
So I'm going to pull up a picture here for our students so we can just see. 9 to 14 men would work together to load, aim, and fire these guns back in 1812. And your job as a sailor would have either been helping to man those sails or helping to man one of these guns. And so they work together during a battle to do that. And we'll just take a quick look. I see Jordan is giving a close-up of one of these many guns. Do you still fire them today on Constitution?
Yes. So we have 2 functioning guns on Constitution. They're both up forward right now. The one is, we have one on starboard and we have one on port. Right now we are firing our starboard side saluting battery because that is what's facing away from the pier. We fire every morning at 0800, and we fire every evening at sunset, whatever time that is. We also fire on days that we take the ship out. We take the ship out still about 6 to 7 times a year. So when we do take her out, we fire a 21 gun salute and a 17 gun salute when we go out.
And I want to point out that above each of these guns is a name. Each of these guns have a name. This one I think is called Go Navy. Very, very patriotic for the Navy. Gun teams name their guns. So just like you might have a sports team that has a mascot or something like that, gun teams named their gun to give them something to root for, to give them motivation, to work together to fire their gun. So they all have a different name, which is a cool thing about Constitution's gun deck. Perfectus is that one. Cool. And there's another thing happening here on the gun deck, which we passed, that I want to talk about. There it is. Yeah, Jordan, what's this?
So this is the oven. This is where the cooks of the ship actually cooked the one hot meal that sailors got a day.
Okay. Right. So you had an oven all in the mix of all of these guns. I have a quick thing to pull up here about what sailors were eating, right? Because you're doing a lot of this manual labor. You have to be eating as you go along. Here is a common sailor food that they were eating in 1812. Any guesses what this is? I think I'd take a look at this. I know maybe the chat could be opened, or we could just take a guess here. I'll zoom out a little bit. I'm showing you a very zoomed in picture of what this might be. Any guesses?
I think there are some kids. Someone said a cookie.
Yep.
Yeah, like a biscuit kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, even got the right term. Exactly. This is called ship's biscuit. And this was the sailors' bread that they ate 3 times a day. But Jordan, tell us a little about ship biscuit. It is not a nice, soft piece of sandwich bread, right?
The ship's biscuit is twice baked yeastless dough. It kind of, another name for ship's biscuit is hardtack. So it just means that it is very hard, and sailors would often dip it in tea to soft or hot water to soften it up and be able to even eat it.
Yes. So a very hard piece of bread. There was a reason why they served sailors really hard bread on Constitution, if you think about it. There's no refrigerator. So food that was dry and had no moisture or fat in it is not going to go bad for 6 to 9 months at sea. So they ate a lot of those biscuits on Constitution. They were also eating other food that was cooked in that oven that you saw. Like salt junk, which was a type of salted preserved meat that they were eating as well. So, it might not look like great food to us, but at the time it was a lot of calories. It gave you the energy that you needed to do this hard work on the ship. And for some sailors, this was maybe better than they were eating on land if they had come from a poor family, because the Navy gave you 3 meals a day. Yeah. All right. I want to, Jordan, now just walk briefly to the captain's cabin. We'll do a little special behind the scenes treat here to finish up.
Okay.
So we're walking towards the back of the ship now into a special area. All right, you want me to explain what we're seeing, Jordan, or do you want to do it? Go ahead.
I can explain.
Yeah.
So walking into the captain's cabin, you'll see that there are 2 rooms on either side. So this meeting area right here, it is basically where the captain would call any of their meetings or to talk with other officers or other people aboard. You'll also see cannons in here. There were not cannons in the officers' quarters. This wall was actually collapsible, and it would just turn into the rest of the gun deck. The 2 rooms, one was for the captain, and then the other one was actually for any dignitaries or any guests that the captain had aboard. And they were the only people with beds. Everyone else got hammocks that we'll see later. In here, in the captain's cabin, you might be thinking where the captain used the head or the restroom. And right in here, under here, is where the captain would go. You see that?
He had a nice view out of his toilet.
In the
Best
sun.
toilet in the house.
He had the best selfies ever.
That's right.
And in here, it's kind of dark right now, but this would just be, we have a couch in here. This would be where the captain, I guess, had his chill time other than his bed.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys probably know the captain, most important person on the ship, the highest of the, highest in our ranks. He's in charge of all the decisions about going to battle and making sure the sailors all know what they're doing. So, there were privileges to being the captain. As you can see, he had the most amount of space and privacy on the ship. Awesome.
What I was just showing before, that was just the captain's skylight. And as you can tell, it's very dark in here. We have the skylight closed right now, but it was actually a gift to the ship and to the captain's skylight, in order to light up his rooms and the decks throughout the ship.
Great. So Jordan, I might have you come back up. I'll pull up this video here. Okay. This is our video of a sailor down where he slept. This gives you a sense of that space Jordan was going to show us. So there's no sound to this video, but we're seeing a sailor wake up out of his hammock. And so your hammock would have been right next to each other, as you see. And you're going to take your hammock down. This starts your day. You're going to take your hammock down. You're going to roll it up and put it up to the top of the ship. So that was like making your bed in the Navy here. But just notice this space. It's really crammed. The ceilings are very low. I'm tall. I can even stand up straight. And you don't have much fresh air. All you have are these little, what we call portholes on the side to let in some air. So this just would have been full of smelly sailors with very little fresh air or light down here on this deck. All right. So hopefully that gives you a sense of where sailors like yourselves, being younger, would have had to sleep. Not everyone had the nice privilege of the captain. So, great. Okay. So I guess I have, we can take some questions, Ralph, at this point, and then I have one final question for our group.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know I got some emailed to me, and I am opening up the chat. You guys can send my way. So one of the kids wanted to know, how far, like when you guys shoot the guns, it's ceremonial. Is there anything that comes out when you guys shoot those guns nowadays?
So when we shoot the guns now, it is just a blank or a training round that we fire, but it is, so I am the gunner here. So I do all of the salutes on my starboard side gun, and the other person in my division is on the other side. And they are blanks, but they're really loud. So they have a concussion radius. So if you're right in front of the gun, you would be if you didn't die, you would be very, very, very wounded. So yes, we do take safety precautions, not because we fire anything out, but because it's very loud and deafening if you do it too many times without the right ear protection.
That sounds incredibly intense. We have a historical question. This comes from Raul. Raul, you should be able to unmute to ask my friend.
Yes, hi, I'm Rahul from Spain. So I love ships, and I'm a huge fan, especially of this ship, because it's the oldest and it's still afloat. So my question was, what was the USS Constitution's secret to performing so well in battle, and what are its innovations still being somewhat used in present day?
Okay, so Constitution, Constitution was a frigate, and the ships that we were fighting against at the time, the British, for the most part, their ships were way bigger than ours, and they had more guns. But one of the qualities of a frigate, or I guess a couple of qualities of a frigate, and why we chose to have frigates as our first ships, were because they had the gun power of the British ships and the other ships that we were fighting, but they were also small enough to be, or agile enough to move very well without, I guess, being hit or being really caught. So we were able to move, and we were also able to have the gun power to fight the other ships. Now, the structure that we built, we used white oak and live oak. Live oak is a wood that is 5 times more dense than white oak. And the way that we actually sandwiched the wood for the hull, it actually made us basically, earn our nickname, Old Ironsides. And that's what made us, I guess, be undefeated, 33-0.
33-0, undefeated. I love it. One of the kids emailed me. They wanted to know how long would someone have to essentially be living on that ship back when it was in its heyday? And this could either go for Emily or Jordan. I don't know who would know like the average time.
I know the ship was outfitted to be out at sea for 6 to 9 months at a time. So a sailor may never see land for that amount of time. Obviously, you had to go into port at some point to get fresh water and food. But just living purely on Constitution, it might be up to 9 months at a time.
That is a lot of time at sea.
Yes.
So they wanted to know, one of the kids wanted to know, what are some of the, because you mentioned that you take the ship out to 8 to 10 times a year. What are some of the reasons that you guys take the ship out to sea a little bit?
So we take her out, but maybe 6 or 7 to 8 times a year between the months of May and October. And those are, for us, what are considered our sailing months. So that's when we have our sails on, and that's when we practice our sail maintenance. But most of our underways, we go out to commemorate groups of people, or to commemorate certain days, or to have training purposes. So I know our first one is usually for the crew to be ready and get ready for all of the ones that we have next. The ones that I have been on since I've been here, we did one for first responders and nurses. We did one for Vietnam veterans. We did one for Medal of Honor recipients. That was a really cool one. We did one for, of course, we always do one for our friends and family, which is great. Our friends and family actually get to come on and see what we do on the ship. And then the really big one that everyone knows about is, of course, the July 4th underway that we do.
Right. So you can all enter a lottery if you're ever in the United States to come and sail on Constitution on July 4th. It's a public lottery that's picked.
Wow,
So good
that
luck.
would
Yes.
be incredibly intense. I had a quick question. Is there ever, because we see in the old timey kind of movies where the ships kind of go against each other and then soldiers jump on ships was there ever any hand-to-hand stuff that ever kind of the Constitution was involved with, or was it strictly long range?
So we had our Marines on board, and the Marines on board were basically our boarding party. So if we got close enough to a ship, then the Marines would actually board the ship. But usually it would be after a ship already surrendered that the Marines would actually go on board and basically take our POWs and bring them onto our ship. And then a crew from Constitution would actually go onto the ship and actually take the ship to where we wanted to go.
I can't imagine that if the sleeping quarters for the soldiers were that cramped, what the POW sleeping quarters probably. I mean, did they sleep underneath the ship? How did that work?
So I'm sure that they would fit them wherever, but they probably went on the orlop deck, which is the deck that we use for storage. Of course, they didn't get as luxury hammocks that our sailors had, but they did have pretty good sleeping arrangements. And we would definitely, correct me if I'm wrong, try to make a port visit as soon as possible to wherever we needed to go to let the POWs off.
Well, I'm gonna hand it back off to Emily because I know that you had one final question before we let you go.
Yeah, I'm just curious, you know, we've looked a little bit about what life at sea was like in 1812, and I'm curious if the sailor's life is for you. Would you have liked to have been a sailor on Constitution at this time? Thumbs up, yes. Thumbs down, not for me.
I'm up for adventure. I don't know.
Okay.
I would do it. Um, so before we let you guys go, this question is for both of you guys. Emily, what can you say to any of these students as they kind of go off into the world and figure out what they want to do? What kind of advice would you have for them?
Oh gosh, what do you want to do? Yes, what advice would I have? I would say try a lot. Don't get stuck in one job, maybe because it pays well or you're comfortable. I said, don't get complacent, right? Try a lot of things, try moving around. If you have that luxury to kind of experience a lot of different jobs and a lot of different parts, different institutions, like I think that would be some advice that I give. I've been lucky to work at national parks out west. I've been lucky to work in New Orleans, in different cities. I lived in Paris. So I had an opportunity to do a lot of different jobs in different places. And a part of my profession is that I can teach history wherever I'm at. And so that's been a great thing for me. And I would encourage you all to do that.
That's wonderful advice. And Jordan, same question for you. What kind of advice would you have for these kids as they go off into the world and figure out what they want to do? I know that you've got to travel quite a bit being in the military. So what kind of advice would you have for these kids?
My advice, so I'm probably closer to your guys' age than anyone else in here, actually. So I joined when I was 17, and I joined just because I wasn't ready to go to school yet, and the military was kind of a good way for me to be able to travel and figure out what I wanted to do, and also get the benefits and get paid while I do it. So that's really cool for me. But I would say being in for a couple years, definitely use your resources. Don't be afraid to talk to people and have like good outreach. And if you're not that type of person, there are plenty of ways. You do not have to, I know school is encouraged, but that's not the only way to make it. So kind of just follow your gut and what you want to do, and you write your own story. And I would also say be very positive and be a realist optimist. Don't be so optimistic that you're not being real with yourself, but be optimistic, because no matter where you go, you take yourself. And that's a really big thing for me, is you can't control other people or other things that happen, but you can control yourself and your reactions. So just be very, very aware of that and enjoy life, and do not settle for less.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Wonderful advice from you, Emily. And before I let you guys go, before I end the meeting for all, I'm going to ask everyone to unmute. And can we all say thank you to Jordan and Emily for taking time out of their very valuable day to come talk to you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.